Bernstein now, member of President Biden's Economic Council of Advisors. Jared, thank you. We've had Infrastructure Week over the last few administrations, Republican and Democrat, more often than CNBC airs Shark Tank. Why in the world would we believe anything's going to happen this time when it never has before?
It's a totally fair question, but I'm here to tell you that I'm very confident, more importantly, the president is, that this case will be an exception to that rule. Why? Because, first of all, it is a carefully thought through, elaborate plan that goes through and checks every single box you just mentioned. That was a very useful and somewhat exhaustive look at where the problem is. And I think a lot of Americans are not happy that we rank 13th globally when it comes to the condition of our infrastructure. You just mentioned that C- and D in various categories from the engineers. And in fact, over 80% of Republicans support improving our infrastructure and have for a long time.
Yeah, but sir, not Republicans in Washington. Republicans in Washington say this is going to add to the national debt, now more than $28 trillion. Is that not a concern in the Biden White House at all?
Well, I take your point about not Republicans in Washington. That certainly was the case with the rescue plan. But when it comes to infrastructure, there actually are Republicans in Washington who want to do something. Now, clearly, they're going to have arguments, just like Elon said, about our pay-fors and aspects of the package. But, I know for a fact that there are Republicans who believe that our neglect of our infrastructure, the fact that we invest so little relative to other countries with whom we're trying to compete, is just makes no economic sense.
But you're not going to get a single vote, sir.
Well, that's not known yet, and certainly the president will reach across the aisle as best he can. But you may be right, and that's not a bad prediction these days. However, as Elon talked about, there are ways to deal with that, too.
That's true. But one of their arguments is this isn't all about infrastructure at all. There are billions to increase access to Medicaid, revitalize manufacturers, prepare for future pandemic. Could you please explain the reasoning there?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about areas where this country really is missing some key aspects of life that people face on a daily basis. Some of it has to do with roads and bridges. Some of it has to do with access to clean energy and water. And some of it has to do with, frankly, missing a child care sector that's accessible and affordable, missing a sector where elderly people can get the kind of care they need. That's part of the social infrastructure or the healthcare infrastructure of the country as well. So we see that as very legitimate in terms of helping people get to where they need to be.
Jared, the president says he plans to pay for this in part by raising the corporate income tax to 28% from 21%. Is that realistic, that number? Critics say it makes it harder for U.S. companies to compete with the foreign ones and that raising that rate could hurt hiring wages. Your response?
Yeah, no, I don't buy that critique. In fact, we've had corporate rates that have been higher than that in periods where our corporate sector has been highly profitable and competitive. So I think it's much less a matter of the rate and much more a matter of many of the loopholes that this plan also goes after, particularly in the international sector. We just think there's too much energy wasted trying to find tax havens and engage in tax avoidance and book your income in one place and your deductions in another place. By closing down those loopholes, not only do we raise necessary revenue, but we cut away at some of the excess profitability that really hasn't contributed much to investment in this country in recent decades.
A lot of corporate power pushing back. We'll see. Jared Bernstein, great to have you. Thank you so much. Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.